This last Monday, as I spoke to potential recruits for my college Republicans, I was asked a very pointed question. Doesn't Ted Cruz deny global warming? Today on the conservative reply, tyranny and global warming. Ted Cruz was asked a very similar question by an amateur ambush reporter. They certainly weren't ready for his answer. Here it is. Public policy should follow the science and the data. 30 to 40 years ago, the political liberals and scientists found a problem: global cooling. They were certain that we were headed for a sensational ice age. The solution to this problem was massive government control of the economy, energy sector, and every sector of our lives. The solution was to limit freedom. The problem, however, was that the data soon disproved this theory. But then we had the same politicians and scientists who warned us of global warming. And the solution to that problem is the same as before: more government control of the economy, the energy sector, and of our lives. But then the satellite data showed no meaningful warming in the last 18 years. CO2 emissions are growing exponentially, but the temperature isn't budging past the margin of error. Then we had a third problem, which is quite recent. Now, the political liberals and scientists are speaking of climate change, which Cruz calls, quote, the perfect pseudoscientific theory. Of course the climate is changing. It has changed since day one and will keep changing forever. So no matter what happens, it can't be disproven. And the solution? The solution is the same: massive government control of the economy, the energy sector, and every aspect of our lives. Recently, Obama released new suggestions for environmental regulation. They're some of the most problematic I've heard in quite a while. The new restrictions would limit dramatically the amount of waste methane that can be released by oil and natural gas wells and through hydraulic fracturing. Firstly, this directly targets the fracking industry, a key component in lower gas prices we've enjoyed. Perhaps Obama doesn't realize that higher gas prices gut the lower and middle class. Perhaps we would have less dependence on government if transportation to and from work, if heating our homes was not so expensive. It would be irresponsible and inhumane to drive the prices back up. Aside from that, methane is a fuel that can be sold. In a true capitalist society, it would make sense for fuel companies to try very hard not to release much of it into the atmosphere, so that they can maximize their profits. These new regulations would also do one other detrimental thing. They would make it much more expensive to enter the fossil fuel market and to produce more oil. The regulations exempt currently existing wells. This means that current companies are protected from these regulations, and it makes it harder for new companies to enter the market. More companies means more competition and lower prices. Preventing more wells also lowers the supply and prevents oil prices from falling. While it's certainly noble to try and protect the planet we live on, it is not noble to do so by protecting oil companies at the expense of our taxpayers. These regulations prevent energy independence in the U.S., which would prevent the Middle Eastern governments from having a heavy hand in our economy. President Obama, is fighting climate change an actual goal? If it really is, then why are you privileging existing companies and wells? Eventually, fossil fuels will run out. They will become incredibly expensive. By pure capitalism alone, companies begin to produce more and more efficient technologies and machines. Eventually, it'll even be more cost-effective to invest in renewable and cleaner energies. But we must allow the growth to take place for the new innovations to follow. These companies work because they have a profit incentive. They know that oil is a finite resource. It is these companies, through self-preservation alone, that will be the pioneers for greener technology. What noble investments could we have if we refunded the EPA and gave power back to the states? Obama must stop injecting himself into the capitalist structure. It is this blind interference and statist policies for government control that corrupts capitalism and stifles our potential. Through all of these scientific problems, the solution has always been the same, regardless of the data. More government regulation and less freedom. These two have a solid inverse relationship. And when the solution never changes in response to changing problems, it might be time to ask yourself, do these elites in Washington actually want to save the planet? Or, it would seem, that their goal is one thing: more government power. I'm Alex Ross, and this is The Conservative Reply. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you hit subscribe so you can keep updated on all of our videos. Fridays and Mondays we have viewer-suggested videos. And of course, as always, our special edition. If you haven't checked it out, check out my special edition from Mackinac Island from this last weekend. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/theconservativereply, to see some fun memes and hear my comments in a more textual format. Thank you, and I'll see you on Monday.